Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the second half of word problems for solving systems. So this video is going to be going out Monday. And this is just a few extra examples of word problems. And they're actually an extension into 20-1. So not the type of question I'd expect you to be able to do at the 10C level, but definitely something that you're going to do in 20-1 in a similar capacity. So it's good to look at. We're only going to look at a couple. Hopefully it's a shorter lesson, and then we'll be ready to roll. So quick summary of the week. We have lesson today. Tomorrow, Tuesday, will be a review lesson of solving systems. Wednesday will be the weekly assignment, which sums up the whole unit. And then Thursday, Friday are our wrap-up and catch-up days to make sure we're all caught up before marks are due. And we're done. Okay, it's wrapping up really quick. We're going to be done in no time. So with that said, let's jump into a quick lesson on some more advanced word problems. Okay, page 649. We are looking at some more word problems. And like I said at the start, these are definitely some advanced word problems. The first one, not as much, but the second one is pretty tricky. And not something, neither of these are something I would ask on an exam for this year, but looking at the 20-1 level, it's definitely within grasp. So let's look at the first one, which is a mixture. Okay, it says cashew nuts costing $22 per kilogram are mixed with Brazil nuts costing $16 per kilogram. Okay, the mixture weighs 50 kilograms and sells for $18 per kilogram. Okay. How many kilograms of each type of nut were used in the mixture? Well, let's think. First thing I'm going to do is a let statement so that, I want to talk about this. I want to write some things down, but I need to say what the variables are going to represent. So I am going to say I'm trying to find the kilograms of each nut, or the amount, right? The mass or weight of these things. So I'm going to say, because I'm very original, X be the amount of cashew nuts. Okay. And then Y be the amount of whatever the other one was, Brazil nuts. Okay. Oh, I should have said of cashew nuts. Okay. Of Brazil nuts. All right. So now it's just easier for me to talk about. Whenever I talk about cashews, I can just talk about X. Whenever I talk about Brazils, I can talk about Y. Okay. Just like Friday, if I'm going to solve a system, I need two equations. Okay. Okay. I'm going to solve this. Okay. I need two equations. So I look at the info that it gave me. Okay. I look at the info that it gave me and I think, okay, how could I talk about weights or costs or money or things like that in an effective way? Okay, how can I bring this all together? So what I see is, let me just point, 50 kilograms sells for $18 per kilogram. Well, what that tells me is I actually know a price. This is like, after I combine them, the value of it is $18 per kilogram. Okay, well, if I bought $50 of that, okay, 50 times 18, oh, you paid $900 for that. So this is someone buying in bulk. Obviously, this would be like a distributor or the actual store that's going to buy these and then sell them. Okay. Well, $900. So I'm going to write that in. I'm just going to kind of fill that information in here, saying you spent $900. Okay. The next thing I'm going to look at is, if I have 50 kilograms, that comes from cashew nuts or Brazil nuts. Okay. So I can talk about, number one, the money. Okay. How much money did this cost? And number two, how much did it weigh? So I'm actually going to talk about the weight first, and I'm going to say the amount of kilograms of cashews plus the kilograms of Brazil nuts has to equal 50. That's an easy question for me to look at. Okay. Then I look at the money. Okay. I look at the money. And the nice thing is, I actually have prices individually, and then I just need to figure out how does that price out altogether. So how I break that up is I say, well, $22 for every kilogram of cashew plus $16 for every kilogram of Brazil nut has to equal that combination. Figuring out those amounts had to boil down to $900, which was the amount times the price. Okay, so that's the hard part, getting that set up and kind of saying the amount of money I paid for cashews plus the amount of money I paid for Brazil nuts boils down to $900. Okay, all right, I finally have an equation now I can solve. And now at this point, it's really easy. I have to figure out what method I want to do. And really, it doesn't matter. Maybe you go substitution, maybe you do elimination, maybe you do graphically. To me, I see x's, y's, and constants all stacked up. So let's do elimination. Okay, so maybe I try to get rid of x, maybe I try to get rid of the y. I'm going to get rid of the y's, okay, just because. So if I have 16y here, I want negative 16y up there. And I can absolutely do that. Multiply left and right. So multiply the whole equation by 16. Okay, I get negative 16x minus 16y equals negative 50 times 16, 800. Okay, the bottom equation was untouched. But it works out because now I have that same coefficient, but one's positive, one's negative, so it crosses out. Okay, add everything down, you get 6x equals 100. Okay, and I can find now x, which is the amount of cashew nuts, which is 100 divided by 6. 16.6 repeating. So let's just write it as a decimal. Okay, 16.6 repeating. Awesome. Okay, we did it. All right. Well, it said how many of each nut. So now I got to go back and I got to find y, or I got to find the Brazil nuts. I could plug into here, equation 1, or I could plug into equation 2. I think it's easier to plug into equation 1 because it's smaller, doesn't have any coefficients. It's kind of just plug and play. All right, 16.6 repeating plus y equals 50. Subtract that amount away. Minus 16.6 repeating. And here's where it's nice because I have that stored in my calculator. So I can go 50, subtract. Answer is above the negative sign. So second negative, and I don't even have to retype it. And I get the exact answer, 33.3 repeating. Awesome. So this magic mixture that was 50 kilograms, well, 16.6 repeating, that was the cashews, 33.3 repeating kilograms, that was the Brazil nuts. Okay, so let's write a sentence for that. You have 16.6 repeating kilograms, units there, of cashews, and 33.3 repeating kilograms of Brazil nuts. There you go. My little sentence. All right. So solving, no different than any of the other solves we've done. The only difference, there we go. The only difference is maybe it's a little harder to get those equations. Okay, maybe it's a little harder to get those equations. All right. Number 3. So we're skipping 2. We're just jumping to 3. Distance, speed, and time problems. So this is actually a science formula, okay, where you can look at some different formulas there, all relating distance compared to speed over time. So distance equals speed times time. speed equals distance divided by time. I did that wrong. And lastly, time equals distance divided by speed. Okay, so those are all like science formulas or physics formulas. Okay, so it gives us that little triangle. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's not really super important. Just know those formulas. We're going to use those a little bit. Okay, or just maybe our understanding of speed and distance and stuff like that. Okay, the student drove from the 1,245 kilometers from Edmonton to Vancouver in 16 and a half hours. This concluded a 1 hour stop in Golden and a 30-minute stop in Kamloops. She averaged 100 kilometers an hour on the divided highways and 75 kilometers an hour on the non-divided mountainous roads. How much time did she spend on the divided highways? So it only asks for kind of one of the pieces, right? I spent a certain amount of time on the divided, a certain amount of time on the non-divided. Well, if I find one, I've found the other, but really all it asks for is one piece. But I'll have to find both in order to get my answer. So let's take a look at this and let's see what we can kind of create, keeping in mind I need two equations. So to start, I need a let statement. And what I'm going to say is let time spent, so x, be time on divided highways. Those are the ones with a median, right? The big highways, like Highway 2 is a divided highway. Let x be time on divided highways. Y would be the time on the undivided. So those are like kind of range roads, or just if you go to smaller areas, it's just one lane and one lane, and you have to go slower. Especially if you've ever driven to BC, the mountain areas are really slow. Anyways, okay, there we go. So x and y, oops, not divided, non-divided. Okay, divided. Well, if I'm talking about time, the first thing I'm going to do is go to the question and say, it says it took 16 and a half hours, but it didn't actually take that much on the road, because I need to subtract the 1 hour that you spent in Golden. So maybe you got dinner. And then I need to subtract the half hour that I spent in Kamloops, the 30 minutes. So really, 16 and a half, subtract 1, subtract a half. Really, you spent 15 hours driving. Okay. And that actually gives me my first equation, because I know the amount on the divided plus the amount on the undivided has to equal 15. I was on the road for 15 hours. It was one or the other. So that actually gives me my first equation. Okay. Equation number 2 says, equation number 2 I can get from my speeds. Okay, I can get from my speeds and look at that a little bit. And actually the piece of information is right at the start, is it says you travel 1,245 kilometers. And if I go up to this formula, that's distance. So this is why I gave us that formula. Looking at distance is your speed, or your rate, your kilometers per hour, times time. Well, I have variables to talk about time, and I have the speeds right here. So I can talk about the distance. The distance undivided would be 100 times x, 100 kilometers an hour for a certain amount of hours. Okay, plus 75y, 75 kilometers an hour for a certain amount of hours. So it's the distance on divided plus the distance on non-divided has to equal 1245. Okay. All right. Well, there's my two equations. Again, a bit more complicated to actually get to, but now I'm set up to solve. Okay. Maybe I do this with substitution. Maybe I do elimination. Maybe I do graphically. It's set up pretty nicely to do elimination, but since we already did elimination today, I'll do substitution for this one. Okay, so what I'm going to say is, let's take equation 1 and rearrange it. X plus y equals 15. All right, well, I'll rearrange for x. X equals 15 minus y, right? Take away y from both sides. Okay, so now I can take that. I'll move down here so I can kind of work left to right. I'm going to say that's equation 1. Let's substitute it into equation 2. All right. Equation 1 being 100x plus 75y equals 1,245. But instead of writing x, I'm substituting in this, 15 minus y. Okay, great. And now I have something that I'm going to solve. Little distributive property first. 100 times 15 is 1,500. Okay, minus 100y plus 75y equals 1245. Okay, combine some things together. 1,500 minus 25y equals 1245. And I'm solving from here. Minus the 1,500, minus the 1,500, negative 25y equals negative 255. Yes. I should double check. 1245 minus 1,500. Yeah, negative 255. Divide by the negative, divide by the negative. Y equals, divided by negative 25, 10.2. Okay, and I'll kind of change that in a sec, or maybe we'll make that look a little bit nicer, but 10.2, that's the numerical answer. Okay, got to find x. Well, luckily, okay, x equals 15 minus y. I've already written that out. So x equals 15 minus 10.2, or x equals 4.8. Okay, well, there's your answers. Okay, I did it. I found my time on divided. I found my time on non-divided. Okay, something to keep in mind. This could be a final answer, right? But what I'm going to take a closer look. So first of all, it only asks me actually to find non-divided. So really the only one I'm going to care about is y, which is 10.2 hours. Okay. That doesn't mean 10 hours and 2 minutes, right? Or 10 hours and 20 minutes. It means 10 hours and 0.2 of an hour, right? So I probably would convert this to hours and minutes. Okay. So I have 10 hours and then I have 0.2 hours. And what I need to do is convert that 0.2 hours into minutes. So I would have to clean this up and make it look a little nicer. Well, that's pretty easy. Okay. 0.2 hours. I multiply by a convenient factor. I know there are 60 minutes per hour. So this is actually unit analysis, also a science thing. Hours on top and bottom would cross off. 60 times 0.2 times 0.2, 12 minutes. Okay, so y equals 10 hours and 12 minutes. It might not ask you to do that. It might just say, oh, okay, 10.2 hours, that's fine. But I just wanted to kind of clear up and make sure we're aware that's 10.2 hours, and then I'd have to convert the decimal part if I wanted to talk about minutes. Okay, I need a final sentence. What's her name again? Oh, it just says a student. She spent 10 hours and 12 minutes on undivided highways. Undivided highways, which is a majority of the time. But it makes sense based on the path she would have to take. Okay, so there you go. A little bit more complicated for sure, dealing with the money, or sorry, not the money, the distance formula, distance, time, and speed. Okay, so there you have it. 2 questions, definitely more complicated, definitely reaching towards that 20-1 level. Not something I'll ask you on an exam, but something to be aware of. Okay, here's your homework. Question 1, and then question 8 is a multiple choice. And that is it. So tomorrow we'll do some review, and then we'll move on from there. All right, that's another one in the books. So that is our couple of word problems we wanted to look at. We get a little bit of homework for today, but nothing too crazy. And we are rolling towards the end of the year here. Review tomorrow, assignment Wednesday, and then we're just wrapping up and making sure we got everything in order before marks are due at the end of this week. So with that said, yeah, ask some questions if you have them, set up an appointment, and we're rolling on to the next one. So smash the like button, hit subscribe. Tune in again tomorrow, and I'll have a review lesson for you.